Hey, sweet mama. Welcome back to another episode of Mom in Process. I'm your host and creator, Amy Cawthron. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited to introduce you to today's guest. She is one of my good friends, and I've been anxious to have her on to share her beautiful story because she is raising a large family, and she is my person. I think we've talked about that on the episode before, having a person or having people that you look up to and admire, but not necessarily that you're comparing yourself to, but Nicole is my person. She is the person that I think about if I'm struggling. She is the person that I send a message to if I need advice on routines or homeschooling or anything, because she is raising a large family. They have 8 children and they're dabbling in entrepreneurialism and multiple businesses while homeschooling 8 kids. And I think it's beautiful. She comes to us with an incredible educational background, and she talks about that in the podcast, how that has helped her as a mother, her past career and her degrees, how that has helped her as a mother, has helped her as a homeschooler, has helped her as a home manager in raising the future generation. So I wanted to bring her on today to just share a little insight on what raising a larger family looks like, things that she's done that's worked. Because if I'm struggling, over here with 2, 3 kids, when I first met Nicole, we just had our older 2. What is Nicole doing with her at the time 7, and I would ask her these questions because I'm that type of person that isn't really afraid to ask somebody who's more experienced than me. How do you handle these routines? How do you handle meal prepping? How do you handle the dynamics of a household when it's ever changing? And so today in the episode, we talk about all things mom life and what it looks like to be a mom with a larger family, what it looks like to homeschool with a larger family. And I ask her some really tangible questions on how do you meal prep for a larger family? How do you manage your household? How do you structure your relationship with your husband and your roles and still work together as a team? And Nicole answers all of those for me, and I'm so grateful that she came on. I hope you find value in this conversation. It has probably been one of my favorite conversations because she is so articulate and so good at what she does, and also so honest in the fact that she's not perfect and she's not running a perfect household, but all we're doing as moms every single day is absolutely the best that we can. So grab a cozy beverage and join Nicole and I in this conversational journey. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Amy.
Yes. I'm so excited to have you on. This is something, we're both very busy moms. So this is something that we've both been trying to get on the books and in the works for a while now, but I'm so happy to have you. And for the listeners, Nicole actually lives in my community. We live very close to each other, and I wish we could have this conversation in person, but I don't have the right equipment or the right setup to do that. So we're chatting via Zoom tonight while our incredible husbands are putting both of our children to bed on a Sunday evening.
Right before a school morning.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So thank you for coming on with your guys' busy schedule. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm hopeful that I can help in any way. But yeah, thankfully Ray is taking charge for me tonight and gave me a little whisper, "Good luck," through the door. So when I said, "Good luck to you,"
right, exactly.
They're good kids.
Okay, so why does he need good luck? Because that's the conversation that we're going to have today. So let's take a second, and I want you to introduce yourself and who you are, and kind of the reason why I'm having you on today.
Okay, well, the reason why is I am a homeschooling mama to 8. We have a 14, soon to be 15-year-old, all the way down to just over 1.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of energy. And of course, as in any household, bedtime seems to be the witching hour. Sometimes it's dinner. Most of the time it's bedtime, though. Especially if our 3-year-old has had a nap. He is suddenly awake and doesn't want to go down. So
Mm-hmm.
that's some luck. There's just a lot of energy at bedtime sometimes, especially after a weekend full of fun. And we've had cousins, so we're all kind of revved up, and
Mm-hmm.
it can be a little tricky
Mm-hmm.
quieting everything down. But they have gotten pretty good. They've got a good routine going out there. So
Mm-hmm.
but he's a pretty good dad.
Yes.
He's got a good set, not militant, but he's got a system. He's a man of systems.
Mm-hmm.
Kids
Mm-hmm.
have done well recognizing and growing up in those systems. So they're
Mm-hmm.
dad's in charge. This is what we're doing. Which I don't know if you've ever found it, but when mom is in charge, it's like a different tune. The kiddos dance to, and it's like, wait a minute, he just said the same thing.
Yes, no, absolutely. And Brad walked in. So like, because he put the kids to bed tonight too. And then he walked in and like he took a little bow and he was like, I'm so proud of myself kind of thing, like took a little bow. And it's because when he says, okay, go brush your teeth, it is very like almost military, like they listen, he says something and they do it. And it's like everybody stands up a little straighter and they march a little more and that they actually get in bed. And I'm like, I don't understand what happened. That just went so much more smoothly if it was me. And it's not that I'm not strict or it's not that I'm not stern, but there is just a different dynamic when it's dad. It's like, okay, it's dad doing it. So yeah, we're going to march a little straighter, stand up a little taller.
It's true. Mom and dad are two very different creatures, and they know it.
Yes.
They absolutely know it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'll give a shout out to Ray for putting your 8 beautiful kiddos to bed tonight while we could have this conversation. So, okay. So I want you to tell everybody about your background because you're a homeschooling mom of 8, which is just, I mean, I've known you for several years now, but it still like blows my mind. And I love all of your kids. Oh my gosh. They're just some of my favorite people to be around. You guys all are. So, but how did you, let's go back a little bit and talk about your background because I don't want to say there's more to you than your children and your family, but in like a all consuming way, but like there's so much more to your background and your education that helps you, I feel like plays into your role as a mom.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I will say right at the beginning that homeschooling was never on my radar.
Oh, okay.
Children actually were never on my radar. When I was growing up, children were not a thing. I was a straight A science nerd, and I was going to go be a lab rat for the rest of my life, and children just didn't factor into that. And so I did that. That was my path. I got through high school, scholarship into a private university back east, and was working on my undergrad and master's at the same time. I only did the undergrad because I wanted to put some space. My family and I were having trouble, so I needed space. And I wanted to see the rest of the country too. So I got my undergrad in molecular biology, biochemistry. So when we do science here at home now, it's really fun.
I can bring my kids to your house, by the way, for science.
I have all of my old textbooks, and so our oldest just pours over those. And she asks questions, and I have to sit and think. Wait a minute. Let me remember. But yeah, then I graduated with that undergrad degree, and I came out here and was working on my PhD in microbiology immunology when we became pregnant, or I became pregnant. I don't know why we say we, but I became pregnant, and I was surrounded by carcinogens and neurotoxins and rats, and I thought, this is not good for a pregnant mama. So I left that behind, and Ray actually had a well thought out plan that I wasn't raised with a very at home mother. And I love her just the same, but she was always working, and she put herself through two college degrees while I was growing up. And so thinking about being a at home mom was a very foreign concept to me. And so Ray said, well, now that we know, why don't you just put your 2 weeks in now and stop? And you have 6 months to yourself at home to get used to the idea of being at home and not going to work every day and working for somebody else, but working for us, our family, and building that. And so I think that was a huge blessing in disguise, so that by the time Beth arrived, I was settled into a rhythm, into a routine. Of course, having a baby upsets that, but in a good way.
Right.
Now you've got to learn this whole new person, but already being comfortable in my own home and in that role of motherhood, it was a lot easier, I think, to adjust for having Beth around. But yeah, so I haven't been in a lab since she was born, so that's 14 years. But I do keep up on science because I love it and she loves it. And we have a 13-year-old who is highly interested in aerospace and engineering and that. So we haven't left the scientific world. So it's still very much a part of our everyday. And it does come in handy absolutely while homeschooling sciences because we can dive just a bit more deeply
Mm-hmm.
than the textbook offers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my kiddo, she was reading my immunology textbooks as a elementary student, because you have these things available. And thankfully I had the background that I could hold these conversations with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so even with COVID-19, I have enough background in that we could have good, eloquent, well thought out discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if I told you this, but at one point she was like, I'm just so underwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
with all the craziness that COVID is, because she had enough background here at home between myself and Ray that she could bounce questions off us, especially when things come up in the media that there's like, what? So the science knowledge has helped a lot, especially in recent years, as my kiddos have gotten older. But yeah, that's my educational background. I mean, I don't think there's anything else different
Mm-hmm.
about it. I mean, I've held jobs just like any other mom. I've been running businesses since I was a teenager, so that is another background fun thing that my kids get to see. And I'm even actually training them to be entrepreneurs now. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're running two businesses right now.
yeah.
Plus Ray
It's also
recently within the last year, he's gone out and he's running his own business.
exactly.
So, I mean, that's like, holy crap. That is so much. And it's so incredible because you're teaching them the entrepreneurial side of life also, which honestly now with the world that we're living in is so powerful.
Oh,
And going back to your degree in immunology, I mean, that always, I talk to you about this every chance I see you, just with COVID and things like that. So I imagine the conversations in your household and with what's going on, I'm just surmising with what's going on in the media and everything. It's probably somewhat laughable for you guys because you know so much about that from a scientific standpoint that what they're talking about in the media or social media or whatever, you're probably just able to kind of sit back and be like, no, and almost kind of laugh at the dynamics of the people that are having these conversations.
yeah, we do often. And I'm not an expert, but I know enough that it gives me pause and what are you
Yeah.
no. So yeah, it's been fun. And then it's actually been good too because it's helped some of my children learn a bit more tact, that yes, you do have this knowledge and perhaps you are correct, but you need to get that across politely and
Mm-hmm.
it won't blow up in your face and end friendships, because I do have several scientist friends out there who are very adamant um, about vaccination and the technology that's being used. And so it's been kind of an interesting thing, I think, for them to watch too, as the adults not necessarily dance around the subject, but figure out how to talk about it and discuss it in a calm,
Right.
intellectual way
Mm-hmm.
without mudslinging.
Right.
So
And I love having those conversations. You and I have had some of those conversations in a very, like non-judgmental, like you said, non-mudslinging. I love that you said it that way, because I'm just curious, and maybe that's, I don't know, sometimes I feel like that's a downside, but I ask some of these questions because I want to know other people's opinions or other people's experiences. And so I love that you're able to teach the kids that. And I'll tell you a story. I haven't talked about this on the podcast yet, but on my Facebook page, I wasn't sure if I was even going to share this on the podcast, but on my Facebook page, I had put up a post about me turning 34 or whatever in the podcast and celebrating that. And then that was on my personal page. I had shared it from the podcast page, and somebody had posted to please, how did he word it? It was, please be sure to talk about the importance of getting the COVID-19 vaccination. And I was initially, my first reaction was I was kind of pissed, honestly, because that has no place in what I was posting about. And then I was like, it's okay. That's his opinion. And I responded, very politely, because I didn't feel like it was something that I couldn't respond to. A lot of the times I feel like we can just, whatever, and shrug it off. And in that conversation and that topic, I was like, this is, because this is a reflection of the podcast, and I do want to address it and kind of take my stance. And my point of this story is that I am very like pro-choice. You know what? If this is what you want to do, go for it. Make sure you have an educated reason why you're not doing it just because people told you that you need to do it. Make sure that you educate yourself and you understand what you're doing to yourself and your family with anything, right? It's not just the COVID-19 shot, we'll say shot, but I was, and so like in terms of the podcast and discussing it and things like that, for me, that's how I am. I approach it with, okay, like if that's what you are interested in, or if that's what your opinion is, then that's fine. I'll have my opinion, but we don't have to not be friends over it. And there's like you were saying, there's a way to discuss it. Everybody can have differences. Everybody can have different beliefs and different, thought processes and things like that. But that's what makes like friendships, and that's what makes communities beautiful, is that everybody's a little bit different. So I love that you're able to talk to the kids about that, and they're able to have that kind of, like you said, eloquent conversation. So do they, I guess with their friends, does it come up sometimes, especially with the older kids? There's 16 and no, how old is Beth?
14. She'll be 15 soon.
15. Okay.
Well, so it's, as a homeschooling family, it actually comes up between them and adults more often than their peers.
Yep.
Which is, again, total tangent here, total rabbit hole, but that is another beautiful thing about homeschooling is our children know how to interact with infants up to 80, 90-year-old individuals. And so, this will come up more between adults than their peers often, unless their peers are also having these conversations at home. That might come up too, but not as often. So, but it does enable them, homeschooling, I find, enables them more to have the conversations with older people, which is fascinating and just so enjoyable to watch.
Yes.
Really.
Yes. And they're, so diving into that rabbit hole a little bit, when we first started homeschooling, I think even I was actually just talking to Cassie about this. We saw Cassie today. We went up and had pizza, and I was totally guilty before we started homeschooling of like, well, I want my kids to make sure that they're socialized, thinking that that was like the fear, or like a fear or an issue that they weren't going to be socialized. And then of course, how I am, I started diving into books and started reading about homeschooling and how to homeschool and theories around homeschooling and all of that. And because I don't just do something, I have to check out every book at the library before I decide to make a decision. So we started going down that rabbit hole, and I realized that, like you said, it actually prepares them to have these conversations and socialize in a much more eloquent, articulate way with all different dynamics, with all different age groups. And when I read some of these ideas behind that, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, because when they're in first grade, second grade, whatever, if they're in a traditional school setting, then they're only interacting with one teacher and all of their own peers. So when I have conversations with your children specifically, and other homeschool children too, but your kids specifically, they aren't afraid to come up and talk to me. They aren't afraid to come up and have a conversation. And I absolutely love that. And my kids are the same. I mean, they'll just go up and talk to adults all the time, or ask them like, could I have a glass of water, please? So they're able to express their wants and needs or opinions at, Gracie's almost 8, but people are like, wow, they're so social. I just love chatting with them. I'm like, I know that's because they're getting more used to being around all of the other age groups. So when you have your friends, when we meet for our Thursday groups and things like that, their friends are from Beth's age 14 all the way down to babies under 1 and stuff. And I love that.
Oh no, it's fantastic. I know, I love watching Olivia come over and talk about mantises with Beth and read stories. It's a beautiful gift, and just watching it, it's just, you could just sit back and it's like watching the perfect movie, really. Watching your kids interact with other people. And
yes. Okay, so you went from no kids in the picture.
Yes.
Now we have 8 kids in the picture. And how has your thought process shifted around that? Like in more babies. I love kids. I mean, how has that kind of shifted?
Well, obviously with the first, you're terrified.
Yeah.
I think every mom goes with that because
Hmm.
you just don't know what's going to happen.
Hmm.
But I knew the minute we were preparing to start a family, to be married. He is one of 8. Ray is one of 8,
Hmm.
and I knew, I was just like, there's no way I'm getting out of this without a big family. I don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to have a big family. And so there was never really question about how many. Ray still thinks we're going to have more. I'm finally like, ah, I'm
Hmm.
getting tired and old. It was a huge learning curve, obviously, because I am one of one, and so I've never really dealt with babies either. So
Hmm.
have a network though was amazing. I had a beautiful, amazing mother-in-law who raised her 8 kids, and then all of his sisters were either in the midst of growing their families or just starting as well. And so I just had a fantastic support network. And well, what happens when this happens, or what does this mean, or how do you even begin to bring a life into this world and then not kill it? That was
Hmm.
the scariest thing, is like,
Right.
oh, how do they
I have to
find all
keep
this?
this child alive. Yeah.
Then you add siblings and you're like, oh, how do I keep it alive from its siblings?
Yeah.
I always say, if the baby doesn't get itself, do itself in, the sibling will take care of it.
Yes.
Oh my God. But yeah, once we started, it was never a question after that to have more. I mean, like I said, I was one of one. I do have a stepbrother, but we were always at each other's necks. I mean, I called
Hmm.
us the Brady Bunch. We had My mom married his dad, and so we were kind of always competing, it felt like, for either our individual parent or the other parent, um, their attention and their
Hmm.
time. And so it wasn't really a sibling relationship. It was more of a rivalry.
Right. Like
So
we're here together because our parents are married. Yeah.
we had to do this.
Yeah.
Get
Hmm.
the best out of it we individually can.
Hmm.
Um, but I truly think that giving your child a sibling is the best gift that you can give them. I mean, I don't say that to be what's the word I want, off-putting or down-putting to because I know several can't have multiple children.
Hmm.
I totally understand that, and I'm sad for them, especially if they were hoping for more children. But to be raised as a single child, you miss out on so many opportunities.
Hmm.
Uh, to have that built-in friend, to grow with someone who may not get along with you all of the time.
Hmm.
Um, and you can do all of that within the safety of your own home. And so I really truly think that siblings are the best thing that we can give our children.
Hmm.
Um, and it is, and it's fascinating to watch them. They're like little, well, we know they're sponges. And so every child that has come after Beth learns a little bit faster, reaches milestones a little bit faster, because they've got their buddies who are just above them in age, that they're learning from. They're just
Hmm.
mimicking, watching. And I think that helps, the 3-year-old feel comfortable with the 17-year-olds that he
Right.
comes in contact with, because he knows, well, it's just like Beth. So of course we're okay. So
Right.
yeah, siblings are a must if you can.
Yes.
Again,
And did you, sorry, I was kind of just jumping around in my thought on this too, but did you always homeschool? I mean, I know the answer, but can we talk about that a little bit? Because you guys didn't
sure.
always
We
homeschool.
didn't always. No, we
Yeah.
did. So let's see. Where did, well, Beth hit about 2, and of course with your first, it's amazing the evolution of a mother as you go
Yes.
through multiple children.
Yes.
But
Hence mom in process, always in process.
exactly, I'm still in process. I have 8 of them. So
Yes.
ah, but it was you don't want to fail. You don't want to mess up that first one. You don't, because you feel like you can fail in so many ways.
Hmm.
And so with her, I started so many things early. Like I potty trained too soon. She was reading by 4. Um, but so that's where kind of our homeschooling journey began, just with the home preschool. And I did that because my grandmother had done it for my aunt, but my mother-in-law had done it for her children. And so I thought, okay, well, this is how it works. Eva has 8 beautiful adult children, so something must have gone right. So let's
Hmm.
let's follow the example that's been set. And so, like I said, Beth was reading by 4, and then I wanted her to go into school knowing the basics,
Hmm.
not having to slog her way through those things and being able to learn more. Because I mean, even at the college level, I notice kids coming in and it's like, how do you not know how to do this already? This it's more interesting if you can get beyond the basics and jump into the subjects at hand. So I didn't want her to go in without, knowing how to read, knowing her name, knowing her numbers, and I think we even had her adding and subtracting at that point. But it was much easier because I had fun. I could give her all the attention she needed and maybe didn't want, but she got it. And then so it wasn't ever in the plan to homeschool above that, except for we were living in San Antonio, Texas at the time, and it is a huge city. And the classrooms were 30 plus. And my heart just broke the day I brought her to first grade. We didn't go through kindergarten. I taught kindergarten at home too. And it just broke. Just like, I brought this beautiful person into this world, had her for 4 years, and now I'm handing her over to a system for 8-10 hours a day. And she comes home grumpy and tired, and then it's dinner and bedtime, and we start all over again. And so Ray I love Ray, but he was a little slower to come on board with me, because he was like, no, they're going to go to school because, and I completely agreed too with him at the time, that there are things that you can learn in public school that I just can't teach here at home. Learning a teacher, and which would be like a boss someday that you'll have, making sure you're trying to, not bend over backwards and be a sheep for them, but working in such a way that keeps relationships smooth and running evenly, so you can get the tasks done, and things like that, and peer pressure, and the different things that you wouldn't be able to get in a home setting, which I don't think are socializing. And then so as I watched Beth grow older in the San Antonio public school system, and we sent Ethan in, and just the horror stories that you would hear, because it's a huge city and the classrooms were big and teachers can only watch so much. I was really wanting to do more and more at home. But we finally made the choice when we moved back up here, because I was sadly disappointed. I thought, oh, fantastic. We're going to a small rural community. There's one teacher for every 10 students. I mean, that's amazing. Surely the differentiation will happen, because poor Beth down in San Antonio wasn't being challenged. And so teachers didn't want to deal with that. And they just shipped her off to the computer lab every day. And it was like, how is this good or accomplishing for her? But then, we spent about 3 months in the school system up here, and I watched my children unlearn skills, be told that they needed remedial help. Like, for example, Emma, she tested into first grade. We had to test her in because she misses that magic cutoff date. And so they tested her, and she was reading 120 words a minute, but she needed remedial reading work, because they gave her a test that you read nonsense words. And so she got through the first 2 and gave up. She was like, they're not words. Why am I reading these? Why are you? And so they had to give me an IEP for him. I thought, I don't think so. I mean, this child was reading at 3. She's no. She doesn't need work. It was just one thing after another. But especially once you start watching your children unlearn skills at school, it's like, okay, we're done. We're going to bring this back home and challenge you the way you need to be challenged and nourished, and we'll go from there. I get asked all the time, will you send them back? And my answer is no, adamantly. One, no. I love having my children at home. I'm very selfish. I don't like giving them up from 7 to 4 every single day. I mean, we were leaving for the bus angry because it was a shouting match to hurry up and get in the car. And then they're exhausted and grumpy when you get them at 4. Then it's homework and dinner and bed. And it's like, I think I have children. Do I have children? It's like, oh. But yeah, it was just time to bring them home. And I can't put them in high school now, because now the classes they need aren't available. So because Beth is graduating in a year at 16. And so if I were to put her or Ethan in right now, they're already maxed out on many of the subjects that the schools can offer. And I don't like driving 45 minutes to an hour into another school system find what they need. But thankfully, we're in a day and age of technology. So there's so many online opportunities
Yes.
if they needed a higher class, higher
Mm-hmm.
education class. But yeah, that's how we fell into it. It was, and of course, that's when Ray jumped on board too. Once Ethan was unlearning skills, he's our little mathematician, and he suddenly wasn't able to borrow or carry anymore in second grade.
Mm-hmm.
And nope, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
If it's hurting their education, then it's not education. And
Yeah.
we'll
And it's stifling. It's stifling them. And
it,
we don't want to stifle them. We want to encourage and grow and fuel the fire. You know, you don't want to stifle it out. And so I totally agree. And that's not to, I feel like we almost need to put a disclaimer in there, because that's not necessarily the teacher's issue. It's the system's issue, you know. And I still, you know, in our community still love most of the teachers that are down there. And, you know, we are really blessed to be in a small school, but the system is broken. Like, let's just be really honest and put that out there. Like this, there's something wrong with the system. And I was just talking to another friend about this today. I think it's so far broken that there's no going back. Like, and that's, you know, the moms on the, that listen to the podcast, it's kind of like 50-50, some of them public school and some of them homeschool. But the reality is that there are issues with the public school system and the traditional out of the home schooling education. And for so many years, you know, children have been educated at home for so much longer than the public school system has been in place. So when you start to really think about that, and it was interesting because I was having a holistic parenting conversation in one of my previous episodes, and when you take a look at what has been done for thousands of years versus what's been just done in the last, say, 100, you start to realize, I think we're doing something a little bit wrong. I think something has, you know, and then you really look at the toxic things that are going on in our society right now, and you kind of work backwards and start to see where some of this has really gone south. It's like, maybe we need to get back to what we used to do, like back to the basics of what has been done forever versus what we've changed now. So I'm excited that I'm excited to be a part of the homeschooling community and be jumping in our own way. I will put a disclaimer in here also that it was an entire year of unschooling for me, to like step outside of the public school mentality and realize there's ebbs and flows, and I don't have to be teacher. I can be mom and teacher. And that's one of the beautiful things. It doesn't have to be so rigid. Although, you know, in our household, we do run, you know, a fairly tight ship as far as school is at this time. And then, you know, we end at this time. But okay, so I want to talk about like home management, because you are my person that and I've told you this very openly. I'm like, if Nicole can do this with 8 beautiful children, I can do this with 3. So let's talk about home management with 8 children, 3 businesses between you and Ray, and how that works. Like, I don't even know how to ask that. Like, what's your wake up time? What's your bedtime? You know, how do you do your food prep? And I mean, how does just home management work for you? What's your take on it?
Well, I'll put my own disclaimer out there at the beginning. We all walk into it with the perfect plan
Mm-hmm.
that it's going to work this way. And just because I am seen on maybe a good day doesn't mean every day is like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even every week. I have my goals. Sometimes I hit them. Sometimes I miss by a mile.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fact that we do run our own businesses and that we do homeschool allows us an incredible amount of flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
I kiddo who's having a bad day, oh well, we'll move things around and we'll make sure that bad day gets turned around as soon as we can. And if we miss science or if we miss history today, we'll try it again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll find a different way to teach it that day.
Right.
So I think that just up ahead, we just have a crazy amounts of flexibility. I am very thankful for that. But yeah, home management. Good thing you can't see my room. Not look very managed. But I think just having the basics that that would pop into your mind when you think home management anyway, like a chore system? It's more of a rhythm and a routine. They kind of ebb and flow between each other. It's very fluid. You have to, and this too, for me, just like homeschooling, unschooling yourself. You have to unschool yourself from the perfect ideal of what your home is going to look like, because we currently have 11 people. That's 11 human beings walking around with their own opinions, their own agendas, their own desires and dreams. And so it's not, I'm never going to be able to funnel them in the direction I want them all to neatly go into.
Right.
But I think if you walk into home management with more of an idea or a loose system, you know, that what's the word? My brain is tired. The overarching, you know, you want to make sure the chores are done. You want to make sure there's a somewhat regular bed routine, whether it's wake up or going down. Meals, like I will meal prep for a month. I try to grocery shop once a month because I hate grocery shopping. And that helps a lot too, because then I'm not constantly wondering what's for dinner, because that is an amazing time sink.
Yes.
Trying to figure out what's for dinner. So yeah, I definitely meal plan. That keeps me sane. And then I can grocery shop based on that. And we have a food storage room where we have almost a year's worth of food tucked away. And so I can rotate meals through that. And so, or if I'm in a bind and I dropped a calendar week or something and I'm like, what's for dinner? Well, I have noodles and sauce and, you know, veggies from the garden. Well, okay, here we go. Noodles tonight.
Right.
You know, sauce. But yeah, the other thing is too, a beautiful blessing of having a big family. Like a lot of people look at my big family and go, oh my goodness, how it's like herding cats. But it might be in the beginning, but you teach your little ones to work together and to be self-sufficient and to be independent. And it is amazing how much more smoothly things go. My older kiddos know they need to help a younger kiddo every now and then with either a chore or a school lesson. We have done that. Like you said, you're not always a teacher. I am not always a teacher either. Sometimes my 10-year-old is teaching my 6-year-old.
Right.
And that's totally fine. You know, you're kind of listening in the background. But yeah, it's not just me. When it's just me trying to manage the house, it doesn't work. It's like, I don't like sport analogies, but it actually kind of works here. If you're not all in your positions, playing your positions to the best you can, then the game doesn't get won.
Right.
So, and I think it's helpful for children too, to have that responsibility. It gives them control. We all like control over our little bubble in the world. And so having expectations and boundaries and control, I think are really key to any mom's attempt to manage a household. You can't do it all yourself. You're going to burn out so fast. So you need to get your kiddo on board with you and wanting to be on board. And so I think it's a perspective that you need to have, that we are constantly saying, you know, telling our kids, well, if you want to eat, then you need to either A, leave mom alone, B, ask how you can help, or C, make sure your chore is done so that, you know, for example, if you have setting the table, make sure it's done so that when dinner's ready, we're not sitting here for another 20 minutes waiting for you to tackle your chore.
Yes.
It's always a conversation that you are part of a team. If one of us falls short, then you hurt all of us. We're all of us slowed down that much more. If mom forgets to wash the laundry, well, now you don't have clothes.
Right.
But, you know, if brother doesn't do his turn at the dishes, then I don't have dishes to cook with, and then no one gets fed. So it's a constant conversation with the kids. And I'm pretty sure they understand most of it by now, the older one. And it's great for them because then they can help the younger ones understand. So it's just getting that baseline, and that we're all in this together. Yes, mom and dad are in charge, but we can't do it without you. I think mentality, I think, really helps them understand that I'm important too. I'm vital to this family. And whenever you know that, you're more eager to help and make sure something is a success. So
I love that. That's really something that I could do a little bit better, is really reinforcing the importance of each individual child within their role of the family. I think that is something, aside from like, this is your job and I told you to do it and you need to get it done. It's like really reinforcing you have a place in this family, and I value the effort that you put in and your participation in this project or the dynamics of the household because I can't do it. Like and it's so true. You put it perfectly. Like I can't manage the household by myself. I just can't. I can't make sure all of the animals have been fed and gather the chicken eggs and, like do all of the other things that I actually have now delegated to the girls that I don't do. Like, I don't really, unless we're scrambling when we come home at night and I want the kids to get in bed, like, I don't feed the dogs. I don't go out typically and gather up chicken eggs unless I need to actually like do the heavy lifting of cleaning the coop or something. Like, just certain things like that. Like, I can't have the ebb and flow and that smooth, I say smooth, but I say that very loosely, like that smooth flow of our day to day without the help of the girls. And that's something that I could really do. So how did you learn to do this? Is this something that just happened organically, or did check out every parenting book from the library like I've done in the past? Like, give me a schedule.
I think it's probably a healthy mix.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
have done my fair share of reading. And even when you're reading, you're like, okay, that chapter was a total, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Don't,
Right.
don't throw that one out of the book. Just
Yes.
chop it out. But there are nuggets. There are some golden nuggets in a lot of the resources out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just watching other moms. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of being in a community. I do it often in our church community because you have the elderly women who have gone through, raising their children. Now they're watching their grandchildren. And then you've got the group of moms that are right in the trenches with you. And then you've got the moms just above you who, maybe are moving into the teen years. And so they watch you and they're like, I know what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are fantastic resources too. And I've picked their brains so many times.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can see sometimes just in visiting different homes, like, well, how do you make this work? And it makes for some fantastic conversation and great learning time for you as a mom too.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, some of it just comes organically, just trial and error. Like, oh, that didn't work, so let's not do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And then even just from learning from Ray too, because like I said, I came in this a huge learning curve, whereas he's smack in the middle of 8 siblings, and so he was little when his older sisters were starting their families, and so he watched them and learned from them and from his own parents, and so it's this fascinating pool of collected knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that is still ever shifting.
Right.
Especially as my children grow, it's amazing. Like you say, mom in process. You are always in process.
Mm-hmm.
No matter if you have 8 children, they're all little or they're all big, because they shift and grow, and I have to shift and grow with them and make
Mm-hmm.
changes, drop things, add things. So I think it's just a mix. I
Mm-hmm.
really do think it's a
So I have
mix.
to say, you do such a good job, and this is just my perception, and I know you probably don't feel this way, but my perception when I have these conversations with you is you really know your children, like you know them and their essence and who they are. How do you do that? Like, how does that work? Is that an intentionality, or do you actively consciously take the time to get to know them? Because I feel like that is part of the in process aspect of motherhood, is you're like, wait, hold on a second. I kind of thought we were going over here with this. I thought your favorite color was pink and now it's blue. Like how do you do that? I mean, I have a challenge. I am challenged to do that with 3 children, and I'm home with them. We homeschool, also, but I'm challenged to do that with 3 kids, and you have 8. So how do you do that?
Well, I will say that, yeah, I don't. There are days I think, oh, how I don't know my children at all. So that's kind of funny that you say that. But yeah, again a mix. I'm intentional because I do want to know them, and I want to be the safe place for them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be that place for them if I have no idea who they are, what they're worried about, what they're loving at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. Because there's always that fear. I don't want to raise teenagers who then won't talk to me,
Right.
especially in this world. It's
Right.
it's incredibly scary. And even now, I don't want my 7-year-old to not talk to me,
Mm-hmm.
because you never know who they're going to interact with. And I hate scaring them, but I also at the same time have to scare them a little just to make sure that they know they can talk and tell me anything. Mom's not going to be embarrassed, angry, worried. Just spill your guts and tell me.
Yeah.
Um, and so, it's always, I heard someone say it once and it always stuck with me, that it's important to listen to them now, even if you're bored out of your out of your mind. You're like, I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. But then they know they can tell mom anything and she'll listen.
Mm-hmm.
And as they know that and they grow, then I won't have to have a teenager who I can't connect with and who won't tell me anything.
Mm-hmm.
So even as hard as it is, because this is something no one ever prepared me for. So be warned, teenagers talk at night.
Oh, okay.
Way. Everybody else is in bed. And so that is when they want to talk to mom, because, they feel embarrassed or a little worried about saying this, or they don't want their siblings to all hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And they just feel more comfortable when it's you and mom. And so, yeah, I've had conversations into the wee hours.
Yeah.
So just be warned. That's when they seem to want to talk and they open up. And so it's kind of a training process to get yourself ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's the intentional part, is I strive to make sure, especially as a mom, it's hard. But I think, and you don't have to be perfect. And I think if you're making every effort to be as present as you can when a child is talking to you, because I know you've got appointments you're thinking about, you've got projects you're thinking about, you've got what is dinner tonight on your mind, and they're talking to you. And so it can be incredibly hard to mute everything else. But I think if you're just making even this tiniest effort to give your all to whoever's talking to you at the moment, you can't miss. And you'll learn things about them. And I have help too right now. My other kids will tell me things about their siblings.
Right.
And so I kind of have, not spies per se, but I have helpers in collecting information, because
Right.
siblings, I'm sure, you were growing up, you would tell your siblings something you might not tell mom and dad.
Yeah.
You just feel it's a different relationship. And so sometimes I learn things sideways instead of from the child. I learned it like kitty corner, through a couple other children. And then I can verify it I have the chance to think about, now, why is that happening, and sit on it a little bit and pray about it. And then I can go to the child and let's talk about this.
Right.
But yeah, so I think, again, everything is a mix. It's a good mix. It does take some intentionality. You have to be willing to be present, even if you don't want to be present at the moment. Like sometimes they go on and on about a video game or a sports game, or it's just like, I go back to my book.
Yes, exactly.
Like, or I don't want to read that book again. I've read that Berenstain Bear book like 5 times already.
Yes.
But there's something about that book that speaks to that child. And so it's important to be present as much as you can. And I know everybody is probably beating each other over the head with that these days, but it's true. You're not to know someone.
I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys don't do a lot of TV, or, I mean, it's very like screen time is very limited and monitored and things like that, even for the teenagers. So, it's the same in our house. It's, to be totally transparent, gotten a little more lax as they've gotten older, and with the podcast and things, like there's times that I need to put a show on because I have a 30-minute conversation with somebody. I can't have, a 2-year-old here, and it's only me at home. But, it's still really, we have boundaries around that. We have limitations. And I think that really goes into the aspect of being present, is shutting off the distractions. And distractions come in form of television, video games, things like that. So we do like movie Mondays. We all get to sit down and watch a movie on Mondays. And lately I've been letting the girls kind of do it by themselves, because I need that time to make dinner, catch up on things, and they have to earn it. They have to get their jobs done before we should turn a show on. But they have movie Mondays. There's no technology on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Wednesdays is tablet time. And then there's a timer that goes on, and each of them is allowed to do a activity on the iPad. And then Fridays is free choice. And then if on the weekends, we watch a movie as a family, that's one thing, but it's really limited. I mean, so when you have to fill out those forms at the doctor's office and they say how much screen time, and I'm like, like under 2 hours, for the whole week. And they're like, what? Like, no, like we don't do that a lot. But I think that my point is I think that there's so many distractions that go into or that cut into the opportunities to be present more than just like technology, but it's also overcommitting and too many activities and, things that are outside of the home. We could go back to like public school doesn't allow you to really be present with your kids. It's very, very small pockets of time. And that's just the reality of it. People that are in school might say, well, I know my kids really well. And that's great. And I don't doubt that, because maybe they've really taken the time to be intentional and be very, very present. But speaking from personal experience, when Gracie was in school, I lost her. I didn't know who she was anymore, and I lost her essence. Her essence was getting, stifled and pushed out. And so I think, but now that they're home, there is an aspect of turning off TV and kind of limiting that. So do you guys, is that kind of how you do it at home too?
Yeah, we like you said, it's a little lax. There are days I grumble and growl that we're getting too much.
Yes, it happens. Yep.
It does. Well, and when Declan went through his treatments, it
Mhm.
was, so he's my screen child, because what do you do in a hospital room?
Absolutely.
You're
Yep.
tied to a bed.
Yep.
You
Yep.
pull up the screen. And so for him, it's really hard. It's his Achilles heel, so to speak, is the computer screen.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, when we first really started focusing on it, because I was watching Ethan when he was about 4 to 5. He would be on the screen and he would get so angry
Mhm.
after using it, and I thought, okay, this is not good. We need to draw back on this. And yeah, because I mean, the screen, you just zone in and focus, and everything else disappears.
Mhm.
Your sibling could be screaming next to you and they wouldn't even, unless it was impeding their game, then they notice it.
Yeah.
If it's hurting me, now I'll pay attention.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, totally. They get 20 minutes a day, 25 minutes if they've done their piano lesson. So there's a little bonus for them. Um, but yeah, 20 minutes a day, the timer gets off. They know, oh, my turn's done. I can walk away. And then we have family movie night. It's been, like I said, shifting, because some of our kids are getting older and they don't want to watch the same movies as the
Right.
5 and 6-year-old. But I don't want the 5 and 6-year-old watching what they're watching. So it's been an interesting, how do I still maintain a limited screen time, but allow them their age appropriate screen time? So
Right.
we've been trialing out a few things. So far, I think it's working. The thing that gets me most of the time with the screen is the person who'll have the computer time is on the computer, but then behind them, all the other siblings come in. It's like, no, it's not your turn.
Yes.
I'll be doing dinner and I can't see them, and they're on the couch right out of my view. But so
Mhm.
that one is a constant. I still haven't figured out a way around that one.
Mhm.
I had it for a while, but that was because I was right on top of it. But then I can't get anything done for them, so it's an ever changing and browbeating topic for me right now, because I just the screen bothers me, because so much
Yes.
comes into your house through the screen, and
Right.
we want to be the sentinels to the home, and it's like, this is getting around me.
Yes.
But we'll get there. We'll get there someday, I
Yeah.
hope.
Well, and what we do, I mean, not to dive too much into what we do, I guess, but what we do, I mean, we just have the iPad, and then it's very limited what is available on the iPad. And so, cause yeah, they're like, well, can I watch Gracie or can I watch Olivia? And I'm like, yeah, but then you're actually getting an hour of screen time instead of, 20 to 30 minutes. And the point of some of it is to allow them the independence to do it on their own and to kind of take a break away from siblings a little bit. So the nice thing with the iPad, it can kind of go, but they're also young enough that they don't really know how to download random apps, or, they don't know how to be dangerous on it yet. They just know how to do a little bit. So I can, it's still okay. But I mean, that's kind of how we do it. But we run into the same problem where they're like, well, can I watch them? I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Occasionally I let them, but again, everything has a balance. So I want to go back to, I want to go back because I'm really, really curious for personal reasons, just how you do a month of meal planning and grocery shopping for a month, because, oh my gosh, especially for the amount of people that you have in your house. Because I told Brad the other day, I'm like, we are officially a 2 casserole family. Like, I don't, every time I make something, because my kids like to eat, they're not picky eaters. So if we make chicken enchiladas and I'm like, oh, a 9x13 pan, this is great. This will last us 2 meals. A couple of weeks ago, I was like, I took the time on Sunday, I'm going to make several meals and I have the whole week planned out, and we ate everything by flipping Wednesday. And I was like, oh no, I'm not prepared for this. And now we're scrambling, to figure out like what we're going to cook. And for some reason that is a system, we talk about it in the podcast, like the 3 S's, and that is a system that I need to work on, is my food and feeding my family, because it is, for some reason, it's like, we know it's coming. We know we have to make these meals, and it's still like us pulling our hair out, trying to figure out, what are we going to make today? Or do I have enough for this? So how does that work for you? Because it's something that I personally really need to improve on.
Well, it's been a evolutionary process for me. Because I used to do a week at a time,
Mm-hmm.
but I just don't like grocery shopping. And
Yeah.
now I moved to Kendrick, where the nearest grocery store is 45 minutes away. I don't want to go as
Mm-hmm.
often. Currently I have to go every week because we have 11 people and I just can't keep enough milk. I need a cow.
Right.
Not keep enough milk for us, but yeah, so what I try to do is, so I plan for a month. I sit down about a few days before the month starts, and I know every Friday night is going to be pizza night. That's our family pizza night. The kids make their pizzas and they have movie, and that's our family night for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 4 meals right off the bat that I know are going to be taken care of. And then, if, say for example, I know every Wednesday is going to be busy. We have youth group activities. So my oldest kids go up and Ray has to go up too. He's involved. So I need something fast and quick. And so those are usually reserved for quick weekend meals. I make maybe more time intensive meals. Like, I think Ethan wanted sweet and sour chicken, for example, next Sunday. And that takes like an hour to make.
Mm-hmm.
So I need that to be on a weekend because I don't have an hour
Right.
in the middle of the week.
Right.
So, we just have our favorites and I just rotate through them, and I love to cook. So I love to also experiment with new meals every now and then. So maybe I'll go through a period where every month I'll have a week of just new recipes.
Mm-hmm.
So since I've planned that out, then I can grocery shop for those ingredients. And if I know someone might snitch them on me, I will label things
Mm-hmm.
but I know it's there when I need it.
Right.
Because with 11 people, hands get sticky and they want to eat my ingredients up on me.
Yes.
So they've gotten better.
Yes.
It's hard to have enough teenagers now who get hungry in the middle of the night. And so, you just can't keep them fed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and like I said, I'm not always perfect at it either, but I've done it long enough that I can, if I mess up and forget a week, like I said, we have our food storage room. I can scramble something together,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just eggs and toast and whatnot. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, just having some set favorites that everyone loves that you can rotate through.
Mm-hmm.
And then that helps with the food storage because then you can maybe buy a month's worth of that, have it stored away, and then just dip into it as you need it, as
Mm-hmm.
it comes on your menu. For a while too, I've even done freezer meals where I'll take a Saturday and Ray will help me with the kiddos and I'll just cook all day. And then I'll have like a week or 2 weeks worth of freezer meals. Like we usually do this when we're expecting a baby.
Mm-hmm.
That way I've got like a month's worth of freezer meals in the freezer, and then Ray just doesn't have to worry about it. Just pulls something out.
He pulls something out, pops it in the oven. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's probably, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I think it's simple. I mean, I know it looks overwhelming, but I think I've done it enough that it feels simple to me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially sometimes because, you get in a rut and you just don't feel like cooking the same. And so sometimes having a menu, it really helps you get past, I don't have to think about it. I'll just get the ingredients out and do it.
Right.
We've also done, which was fun, we've done it a few times. I've given the older kids each a week, and they cook dinner for a week. And
Mm-hmm.
so they get to pick out the ingredients and everything from the store, and then they cook it with me, obviously, in the kitchen. But that's fun too, because now they know how to feed themselves, which I think is a very important skill to have.
Right. Yes.
You need to be able to eat more than just ramen, right?
Yes.
Or
Right.
spaghettios or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, it's the control and the responsibility, and we all thrive on that.
Right.
Um, I can't do it every month, because then sometimes I get like a week of hot dogs or something crazy.
Yes.
Okay, we need a little variety.
Yes.
But yeah, those are the things we do. I just will sit down, and sometimes if I can't think of something, I say, "Hey, what haven't we had in a while that you want to
Mm-hmm.
have? I'll put it on the menu."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other thing I really love about having a menu is if something comes up and I can't cook that meal that day, well, I can just erase it, move it to another day till that meal here, and
Yeah.
I know I have all the ingredients.
Yes.
It's not like set in stone, like Saturday has to be this.
Mm-hmm.
If something comes up and I just can't cook that, then I can pull from a different day and rotate it out. And so
Mm-hmm.
that is really helpful too, because I know I've already purchased the ingredients. So it'll still be there when I can get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Freezers are a vital thing too.
Yes. Yeah.
Just things in there.
I would say the easiest our meals have gone in my systems, where it's like, I know what we're having for dinner. I can whip it up. Like, and I guess maybe feeling confident in our systems was when we had every Tuesday was Taco Tuesday,
Yeah.
and it was easy ground burger. I could even do it ahead of time. I could put it in the crock pot. It was ready, when it was time to sit down, and then lots of sides, keep it fun for the kids too. And sides are easy, like I'll open corn, just a can of corn, so that's been the easiest for us too, is when we stay consistent. And I think I've told you this before, a while back, I was like, I'm limiting what I'm cooking just for um the brain space, so I don't have to think of it. It was like 10 items. Like, we have tacos, we have spaghetti, we have, like you said, pizza on Fridays for family movie night. We do the same. So we had like a handful of meals that it was like everybody knew what to expect. And then, I'd throw a fun meal in there, or something new that we haven't had or in a while, or something, like you said, that takes a little bit longer, like chicken pot pie. Oh my goodness, if I make chicken pot pie from scratch, I'm like, it's a day. Like, I know that it's at least a half of a day for me to just get this going. And, especially with dealing with the kids too, because they're, we're in a situation right now that Gracie's starting to get a little bit older, but she's still only 7. So she still needs mom for a lot of things, or, they're not, they're helpful, but not able to like be cut loose in the kitchen to help with things either. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about, I know we've talked about some of these, like home management and things like that, but how do you manage yourself? How do you give so much of yourself to your family? Because like you said, there's actually 11 of you in your household, because your dad lives with you too. So how do you give yourself and then not feel depleted? And I'm sure that you have moments where you feel depleted. So how do you fill yourself back up in those ways, that self-care? And, how does that work for you?
Well, I'll be absolutely honest. Currently, right now, it's not working so well.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's with everything. You have ebbs and flows in your life, and sometimes I am riding a high and I'm doing fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other times where life just scoops the ground out from under you, and I'm kind of in that phase right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, I'm trying to be intentional with it, and so getting back into it. Um, and I will say also, it's easier, oddly enough, when I have a nursing baby, because then I can just lay down in my quiet room for an hour, just me and the baby, and I can
Mm-hmm.
read it, or read my scriptures, or just think, or even take a nap.
Yes.
And so those are times when I can better take care of myself. But a lot, like currently, how I'm filling my own well, so to speak, is actually running the businesses that I run, because I love cooking,
Mm-hmm.
and I love cooking. It's kind of, it's not a love language per se, but it's how I give love, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Is through making sure you have good food for your belly.
Mm-hmm.
I like see the people I care about, and even people I don't know, have good food inside of them and feel full in a good way from that.
Mhm.
So being able to bake through the business that I run with the kiddos is phenomenal. And I get to talk to other people and hear about their days and what they might be needing help with. And then just being able to be with my children, that's fulfilling too. But I also am an incredible introvert. And so even my own kids, I'm like, I just I need space.
Mhm.
I will either have to put mom in timeout when I pop. Like we've been doing a lot of Encanto discussions lately
Mhm.
when that surface pressure. So I'm like, see, that's mom right there. So when mom starts to bubble over, then mom just goes into timeout and
Mhm.
does does something for herself, whether it's prayer, reading, or just sitting still in a quiet space.
Mhm.
Um, but I have done many different things. If I can get up early, like right now, I still, well, not right now, but like a month ago, even, I still had an infant who was waking up early to
Mhm.
nurse. I
Mhm.
can't get up early enough to exercise. So
Mhm.
that's out the door. And so that one's been a struggle to take care of myself physically because you are, as a mom, needed so much from the crack of doom till the end of the day and beyond when my
Mhm.
teenagers want to talk to me. Um, so I am exercising a little bit at night, but sometimes, you're just exhausted.
It's tough. Nighttime's tough.
I don't exercise at 10 o'clock at night. I just want to go to bed.
Yeah.
Um, but so it is you have to nudge yourself along, and I'm working on that. But yeah, really, it's making sure that I have a chance to create something every week or even every day, no matter how small.
Mhm.
'Cause creation just, I think for a lot of people, including me, just kind of fills us up and helps us to keep going.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes just having a chance to read something before going to bed, that kind of helps you separate the day's work from rest.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I will be honestly, I'm not top notch right now at taking care of mom.
Yeah.
Um, and my children could probably tell you that's true too, and so could Ray. Just because you know when someone's unraveling a little bit,
Yeah.
just watching them. But
If
yeah,
mom's not okay, then the
oh,
family,
no,
it goes into the whole family dynamic. And the thing is what I want to interject in there is that what you need to do. So that's I think that's 10 steps ahead of the game of where most people are. When I was struggling, I didn't know what the hell to do. That was part of the problem. I'm like, I don't know. Nobody was telling me what to do. But it's like, that reading fills you up, that creating fills you up, that you need to, work on your body. Like, that one of the things that you need is getting up earlier. Like it's all those things, like, what you need to do. So that's in the back of your mind. It's like, okay, so when I have a free pocket of time, I can do this. Or if when things shift and enable me to do this in the household, or if I need to force things to shift, because as moms, at some point we can kind of force things to shift in kids' schedules and routines. I'm not saying you can do that with Killian with a baby, but I'm saying, like, we can nudge schedules and things around within our household. So I wanted I guess I could give you a big hug because you know what you need to do. But with that also comes the frustrations, because you're like, I know what I need right now and I cannot
can't. Yeah,
get to it.
yeah,
Yes. So there's
yeah.
like two things there, right? It's like, I know what I need, which is great. Yay for me. Pat on the back. But well, dang it, I can't get to that point yet. Yeah. Yeah. So it's tough. Yeah.
It is, and that's what happens. Like I said, when you ebb and flow in life, and
Yep.
it's very seasonal. Like even with homeschooling, I can be a devout teacher and be on top of things and have the experiments and the field trips and da 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 da. But when there's a baby thrown in, forget
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Once you start nursing and have a little one to take care of on the hour, it's a whole different world.
Hmm.
And so for me, I think the biggest struggle right now is always trying to keep that in mind, that it's going to change.
Yeah.
For right now in this season, it has to look like this.
Hmm.
And then when that season is done, it will now look like something else.
Yeah.
Maybe something closer to what I had before, but not perfectly like
Hmm.
that. It'll be something different. And so I think as a mom, that is a huge learning curve for any mom. You have to learn how to be fluid
Hmm.
and process all the time and flexible. And it can be so hard because you have to learn to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Change is hard for anybody, I
Hmm.
think. And I think moms, more than anybody in the world, has to deal with a constant change.
Yeah.
your kids are constantly growing, which means your household looks constantly different. And then you have to constantly be adapting to those individual small and large changes. And
Yeah.
so it can be a little overwhelming.
And nobody prepares you for that. Nobody tells you that aspect of it. Everybody just said, for me at least, like, it gets easier, it gets easier. Well, I mean, to be completely honest, it doesn't get easier. It just shifts, it just changes. You may not be changing diapers, but now you're having very heavy conversations with a teenager at 11 o'clock at night. Like, it doesn't get, I mean, in certain areas it gets easier, but it really just shifts. Like, you're hard, you're challenging, it just shifts. So, and I don't have teenagers yet, so I can only imagine. I'm just asking all the questions for people that do have, teenagers, but yeah, that's tough. So thank you for sharing that, your vulnerability and, telling me that, like, you're struggling and because we all goes through that season, and it wouldn't be a real honest to goodness conversation as stay-at-home moms if we were always like, I'm fine, I've got this self-care figured out. It's like, no, I mean, I go through the same thing where, even with the podcast, like, what's the first thing that gives when I get super busy? And it's me taking care of myself. And so, but I know, like we were saying, is like, I know the tools and what I need to do to get back to that. So, again, like, I'm still working on that too. And it's always shifting, and your kids tend to, take that priority. They, especially when you have a newborn. So is Killian still nursing, or he is? That's great.
I am fine with it. He just has a mouthful of teeth. So
yeah.
It's not the most comfortable thing.
Yeah. But that's great that he still is.
And that's, I know some people look at me oddly, but if that's what he wants and needs, then I will go until he's ready to be done. And I've done it for all of my kids, and they have stopped at various ages. I kind of look at it like, right now, I am not really a source of nourishment for him. He clearly is getting it elsewhere, but I'm more of a security blanket.
Yeah.
And so when he is confident enough to be able to put that aside, that's when he'll stop. And so that's when we'll move on to the next phase. But yeah, so it does. That stage always makes life interesting.
Yeah. He's not that old. He's 12. He turned what, 1 in December?
I think.
Yeah, he's like 14 months, you said? Yeah. So he's not, I mean, I nursed the girls. I think the oldest was 15 months, and I would have probably kept going just because they needed the comfort aspect of it. Not that they needed the nourishment, but they all kind of made their own decisions when they were done. I never really had to wean. But I read something the other day. This is a little off topic, but a friend of mine had posted something in her stories the other day just about the importance of attachment with boys, and that it's actually, and it was in a book, so I haven't, I don't know the facts or the research behind it, but it was in a book that was saying that that little boys actually need that attachment more than little girls sometimes, and that security with their mothers, which I was like, that's a really interesting, I don't know. I only have daughters.
My longest nursers are always my boys.
Yeah.
So that falls right into it. Yeah. Ethan nursed until he was 18 months, and I actually had to stop him.
Yeah. Like, I'm done.
I was expecting another one, and I have nursed and been pregnant at the same time several times, and so it's a little tricky.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there could be some validity to that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I wouldn't know because we don't have boys. But okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is the household dynamic between you and Ray, and what your roles are in the household. And if it's, like we were talking about before we started recording, I've talked to women who have their very specific roles, and this is my job and my husband has his job, and they don't really overlap. I mean, they can on occasion, but typically it's like, I have ABC, he has XYZ, and it's, and then, Brad in my roles is A and BC ish, XYZ ish, I mean, he goes to work, I stay home. So that's kind of the natural dynamic, but it does overlap where he'll cook dinner on occasion when he's home, or on the weekends, he takes that on. So how does that look like for you and Ray?
Probably very similar to to yours.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, yeah, exactly. He leaves and I stay at home. So it's a natural placement of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm in charge of the food, and I do the laundry, and I make sure the kids are learning how to do their laundry. Basically I try to take on the tasks that will free him up to do what he needs to do for us.
Mm-hmm.
And then vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And that again changes, like you said, it's not a set in stone thing. It's, as life seasons change, like there's a new baby, well, now there's different needs. Baby's old enough now, needs to go back to this. But yeah, there are probably a handful of roles that are very, mom or dad oriented. But yeah, Ray will occasionally cook. I will occasionally pay a bill or two,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, yeah, like he deals with the finances for me, so I don't have to even think about that. I
Right.
worry about the grocery budget, and that's about it. And that's okay.
Yes.
You do that, go for it.
Yes.
And then he doesn't want to have to think about dinner. He doesn't want to have to think about, do we have XYZ in the pantry?
Yeah.
Do I have to, when do I need to make this meal by? He doesn't want to have to worry about that. So I am glad to take on that role. And he teases me sometimes. So he's like, well, I'm not in charge of dinner.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you want to eat tonight? Well, I'm not in charge of that. Oh.
But now you are, because
Yes,
you said that.
You.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
Yes.
But yeah, he will cook an occasional meal. And like I said, when we have a newborn in the house, that first month, mom is pretty much out of it.
Yeah.
So he'll cook breakfast, and then we'll pull out freezer meals and things like that. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, and it looks a little different for us too, because yes, he works, but he works right behind me. Like his
Right.
office is right there.
Mm-hmm.
So he never goes away from home either. So if he can, if he happens to, have a free moment, he'll step out and maybe tackle a diaper change for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or, because if he can hear me lecturing or doing a test or something for someone in the kitchen, and he sees our 3-year-old running around with a very droopy diaper, then he'll step in and grab him, change him, and
Mm-hmm.
carry on for the day. So I mean, there are a few that are just, mom does the laundry,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't need to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do the laundry. I'm down there doing everyone else's laundry.
Right.
And sometimes we're both engineers in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a molecular biochemical engineer, and he's a software engineer. So our brains work in systems.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, I'm sure you've run into this before, I think everyone does, but sometimes when someone tries to help and kind of juggles up your system, you're like, that wasn't helpful. And
Yes.
so sometimes we do that to each other. So sometimes it's just safer to not overstep into their
Yes.
domain, so to speak, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to cause waves
Mm-hmm.
where they don't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard too, because then there's sometimes I find myself sitting there thinking, I could use some help right now. Where
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, well, that's not my job. I didn't know you needed me. And so it's like, oh,
Right.
But again, I think it's just human nature, and you just have to work through those parts. But you have your set way of loading laundry or making sure you separate your darks and your whites, and kid comes through and just dumps everything in. And so everyone's got their systems, and I know he is very system oriented, so I try not to tread
Right.
on his side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a mix again, because we are, like we were saying earlier, we are all in this together. We're all on the same team, and sometimes we have to pick up a job or two to help each other if someone is sick or just too darn busy, or nursing the baby,
Right.
or at a friend's house. I love watching my kids. I know we're talking about Ray and I, but my kids, we've gotten them into the habit of, if they're going to a friend's birthday party, or if they've got a youth activity that they're going to, but they're like on dishwashing,
Mm-hmm.
They'll work out a bargain or a deal, like, I'll give you a candy bar if you do the dishes for me tonight, or I'll pay you, a couple bucks if you'll do the dishing and the dishwashing and rinsing for me. So there's always a give and take in that, and I love seeing that they're doing that willingly with each other.
I love that.
Yeah, it helps to show that, again, you're worthy. You have great worth in this, and you are filling a huge task and responsibility that our family depends on.
Right.
So you have value in this. And then it again helps them to learn how to negotiate and talk to each other, talk a problem through. But yeah, and Ray's, back to Ray, his philosophy is great. If you forget about the job entirely, that means he's doing it right, because you're not having to think about it. You
Yes.
don't that never cross it. So he knows. So like if I never have to worry about something, he's like, oh, I'm doing it right then, because you
Oh, I
forgot
love
all
that.
about it. So
I
yeah,
love that. Oh my gosh. I mean,
I hope it's
there's,
the same.
yes, there's things. Oh, that's like, oh gosh, I love that so much. And there's so many things that I could improve on me personally to just completely take that off of Brad's plate, and just so he doesn't ever even have to worry about it. Like bills, it's the same in our house. It used to be more 50-50 or whatever. And it is literally one of those things that I don't have to think about. I
Yep.
just know Brad has a schedule. He's so great at it.
Yep.
And it came because I was dropping the ball years ago because it was too difficult for me to take the time. And I wasn't making it a priority. Let's just be really honest here. I wasn't making it a priority to get on the computer and log in and then pay the bills, or I'd get pulled away because our kids take a priority, especially when they're so young. And so it just ended up having that he takes that off the plate. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to think about the trash getting drug out to the road because he has
Yep.
a timer on his phone and he just knows, like, it's Tuesday, I got to take it out. I don't even think about it. Like, he just takes care of those things. So I really love that. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more and figure out how I can apply that in my life. That's a great takeaway and just kind of a great theory. One of the things that you were mentioning and we were talking about was value and the kids feeling valuable. Is one of the things that I think I've even chatted with you about this in the past, but one of the things that I think a lot of stay-at-home moms struggle with is their self-worth. So you're going from this, incredible background and educational experience and then working experience, working in a lab and feeling, like very valuable there. Like, I'm making a difference. How do you shift that, in 14 years into being home, to finding value in the monotony of motherhood and the day to day? I mean, with with a large family, it's probably never entirely monotonous,
Oh,
but
no.
there is still like an ebb and flow that happens. And so it's still like wake up, breakfast, morning routine. Everything revolves around food. So it's like breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
There are some days I feel like that's all I've done.
Yeah.
I've just cooked all day
Yeah.
and put food in front of people. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, but no, yeah, that is a really good question, and I do see it as being a struggle, and I struggled with it in the beginning. And there may be a day or two now and then if I get a funk and I think about it, but not so much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when I first started out, yeah, my mother was very upset with me.
Mm-hmm.
When I was leaving the work field. I was not finishing my PhD, and I was just gonna go stay at home. It
Mm-hmm.
was my education, a waste of my time, and and so just like with unschooling yourself from public school, you have to unschool yourself that you're only valuable if you're making a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am making more, so to speak, than I ever could in any job. I mean, I tease my kids now and then. I say I get paid in kisses and hugs, and I get paid in seeing you progress and being able to be so proud and watching you grow. Um, that's my paycheck. And then watching you become parents and seeing how you raise the next generation after you. I mean, it's just limitless what you're
Mm-hmm.
paid in as a stay-at-home mom. But yeah, finding your worth in that is tricky,
Mm-hmm.
especially in today's environment, in today's society, because we are so looked down upon,
Right.
because we're at home sitting on our sofas eating bonbons all day.
Right.
Um,
I use the exact example. I'm like, I'm like, I'm not doing that.
I know. I don't know where that concept even
Wait,
ever
sitting down? The only time I sit
got
down is when I'm nursing a baby. Yeah.
in the story. Um, but yeah, I know my mother would say that when I had 4 and under the age of 5, and she's like, "Aren't you bored?" I'm like, I don't have time to be bored. I
Board
am
is a luxury.
I am chasing everybody. I mean, they get up at 5:30 and they go down at 7:30. Then I'm cleaning up after the
Mm-hmm.
whole day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it can be a struggle in the beginning. It certainly was for me, and I've watched other moms struggle with it, and I've seen some moms lose the struggle, and some moms make a huge splash, and they're just amazing moms,
Mm-hmm.
and they know who they are. They are confident in their worth, because they do have so much to offer.
Mhm.
And I think I've shared the C.S. Lewis quote with you before about every job is something. I'm going to botch this, but basically every job upholds the main job, which is homemaker.
Mhm.
Every other job serves to ensure that the homemaker can do her job. Or
Mm.
his. I know there's some stay-at-home dads out there, so.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think there was an article floating around a few years ago about, that someone tallied up your salary if you gave a salary to a stay-at-home mom, being the cook, chauffeur, and the babysitter, and the different hats that we wear, and I think it was like a 6-7 figure salary. So I mean,
Yes.
there, and you really can't put that number on, but if you had to, that's what it would probably look like.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, where am I going with this? I see it just in my kids, just being able to be home with my kids and have the relationship that I have with my children. I mean, that's the world to me.
Yeah.
Before we had babies, I was sitting in a church meeting with my husband and the rest of our ward family, and another older mom had gotten up and was sharing her experience when she was starting to bring children into the world, and how she wanted to be the one to see her first steps, hear her first word, be the one to experience these first, because they don't come again. They're a one-time deal. And I spent the first 5 years of my life in a daycare. And so I just remember sitting there thinking, nope, not happening. I don't want that to be stolen from me. I mean, that's essentially, I don't want to give that up.
Right.
That is a precious gift that will never come your way again, with every child too, because every little one is different. But yeah, and it's fun too, because there's different mentalities depending on what part of the country you're in, whether you're in a small town or a big city. And the big city, every time I had a child, people were usually apologizing and saying how sorry they felt for me that I had so many children.
Oh my gosh.
You always get the, oh, your hands must be so full. It's like, well, yeah, but
so is my heart.
It was my heart. Exactly. That's how I started. And, I'm like, oh gosh, people. It wasn't until we were able to move back home to Idaho, someone finally stopped me at Costco. I think I had 7 of them with me. And they were like, are these all yours? I said, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, they're all mine. They're like, oh goodness, thank goodness that we love big families. And I was like, oh, that is music to my ears.
Yes.
Because I will always remember, I was in CVS in San Antonio. I was very pregnant with our 5th, I think. And this young girl just looked at me and she says, I am so sorry for you. That is awful. I was just like, excuse me?
Oh my gosh.
And then when I had Ethan, he was our first boy. And so the nurse looked at me right after wrapping up this brand spanking new infant. She goes, you have a boy and a girl, you can stop now. And I was like, what? What? The mentality around children these days is just so frustrating and heartbreaking.
Yes, it is.
They're a hobby now, and it's just,
yes,
it just irks me.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, Nicole. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I know my worth just in seeing how comfortable my children are, how safe they feel, and how happy they are. I mean, that's probably my greatest measuring sticks. And I know I'm going to flub things up on a daily basis. I'm human. I'm still learning like they are. And sometimes we get things crossed. But I mean, just the fact that I can stay home, so many people don't have that opportunity. Just the fact that I can stay home and make sure my children are getting the life I want them to have.
Yeah.
That just means the world to me, and shows me that I am doing a very important work.
Yeah.
Even if it's just reading a bedtime story every night, or making sure they have 3 meals a day, not fast food or something that's good for their bellies. Yeah, I think there are so many ways, if women were just given the time and the chance to sit down and tally up what they do and really understand what would happen if they took themselves out of the equation, what that would look like. I think they would have a better picture of their worth
Mm-hmm.
and their intrinsic value
Mm-hmm.
to society. Um, and there's always that quote that goes around, if you want to change the world, just go home and love your family.
Yes, I love that.
Family is your gift to the world. It's how you make changes happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am not going to go become a politician and try to make a new law. But if I raise a righteous brood, so to speak, they can go out and make a change.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily in politics either, but through their own children as
Mm-hmm.
well. We always talk about breaking the chain and the abusive chains between generations. Well, the opposite is true too. If you're putting into your family the good things that the world needs, then it's just going to be exponential. So yeah, I think if women even just allow themselves the opportunity to think about who they are and what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
they'll get a better picture.
Yeah.
And I know that's not easy.
No, but I think it's really interesting coming from you with your educational background and your work experience, because you were essentially like doing what a lot of people would consider like really monumental things and making change but to know, for me, from the outside looking in, for you personally, the change is so much more monumental to in what you're doing at home, and the impact. I don't want to say change, but the impact that you have at home and what you're doing, Nicole, is so much greater than what you would have done staying in your career.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that for me was when I was able to shift that the mindset. And it's the problem is what you were saying exactly, is that we're so indoctrinated into the pressures of society right now that your worth is measured by your paycheck and your job title and the degree that you have. And I think that it's very difficult for women, especially stepping out of a career that they've worked their entire lives to get into, to accept that it is okay for us to be worthy, if not more valuable, in a role at home when you aren't earning a paycheck. And so it took us like physically moving, getting out of, Lewiston, and getting out of the city with all the comparisons of what everybody else has, to living in a smaller town. It took that, it took us uprooting our family basically. And I know not everybody has the capabilities of doing that. I'm just sharing like what worked. What really shifted for us was taking ownership in our role, and taking ownership in our own family outside of the societal pressures of what it should look like. And now we're like cultivating and creating a home that's entirely ours. Like it doesn't look like yours and Ray's. It doesn't look like anybody else that I've had on the podcast. We are taking ownership in our household to raise our children based on our personal experiences and our educational backgrounds and all of that in the way that we best see fit, which then allows your children and my children and anybody else in our stay-at-home mom group's children's to go in and have these incredibly diverse, dynamic backgrounds and knowledge and experiences so my kids probably won't end up being in the science field because it's just not something that we do. And that's okay. Maybe they end up going into entrepreneurialism, maybe they end up going into radio because they've seen mom talk on a podcast, or, maybe they do something where it's like a little more in the public eye because that's what, kind of we've been doing. Like, but that's so beautiful. And that for me was where I realized, this is really important. What I'm doing is actually really important. And it also goes back to what you're saying, is seeing your children and getting really granular with it. So like the other day, for example, I was putting Lily down for a nap, and it was me putting Lily down for a nap in her bed with her stuffed animals and her pillow, with her scents and all of the things that belong to her in her room, like in her house with her mom, all of these things that I get to give her, these beautiful things. Like they get to eat lunch at the counter in our household, in our home, or at the table, or in the sunshine on our back deck, or, it's these little tiny moments that you start to see. And as they grow up, if you reversed the thought process behind that and thought, what would it look like if she was in daycare right now? She would have to go lay on a mat on the floor, you know, with one blanket. That's not cozy. I get to create cozy in my household. So that's how I do it sometimes, is I kind of think about it in the opposite way. Like, what would it be like if I wasn't able to do this? Like what you were saying, I'm adding it. That's what you were saying. What would it look like if I wasn't home? And we got a taste of it the other night. I had a business meeting and Brad was at work and we had somebody staying with the girls and we both got home later than we were expecting to. And it was flipping chaos. It was just absolute crazy town. And Brad had his priorities and I had my priorities, but we were starting to come home and see the kids. And then the kids all want everybody all at once. And oh, it was awful. I hated every second of it. And I was like, this is what it would be like if I was working full time again. And it's terrible. I have no desire to create a life like that. So, and that's what it would be like. It was actually really good for us to see that and experience that again, because it was
a good reminder.
It was a great reminder of what we're doing. Yes. Yeah. So Nicole, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. I know you need to get to bed. If you could give listeners, just one piece of advice, I know that's a big question. That's a big, hard question, but I just want to reiterate the fact that you have been like that one of my, well, really like that person for me that I'm like, okay, what would Nicole do in this situation? Or how would Nicole do this? Because you have this essence about you that's so much calmer than I tend to be. And, at least like when I'm around you and how the kids are and how you speak to them and, just how you manage your household and things like that. And I mean that in like I know you guys all have your stuff and you have your moments, but I love that about you. And I've told you this before, that like, you're my person where I'm like, okay, what would Nicole do? And I ask you questions all the time. And I don't even feel bad about it because I'm like, she's going to give me great tangible advice, which I love. But what would you say to listeners kind of listening to this? Like if there's a mom struggling out there.
There's a mom struggling out there. Just to let them know that, they're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that in any cliche or just fluff sense of the word, but being a mom, whether you can stay at home or you have to work for a season, no matter where you're, just being a mom is a huge, hard work, but it's incredibly valuable. And I would just say, always strive to remember your self-worth, to remember who you are, and to remember that even through the hard times, the blessings will be so immense as you get to watch your family grow, as you get to nurture in the way you want to nurture. Because I know not everybody can do what we do in staying home. Not everyone wants to either. But yeah, so my great, just to remember those things, remember who you are, remember you are doing an important work, a world changing work, even though you may think, how is doing one more load of dishes? Because you can't see how you are affecting everything around you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what helps us to remember to think kindly of others, to speak kindly to our children, and to be to embrace more closely this role of motherhood, is because you are technically always being watched by your kiddos or even by your spouse. And so just to remember who you are and remember how vital you are to these people, this little world that you've created, that will get you through your days. Like you were saying, if you just sit back sometimes and take yourself out of the equation and picture what it might look like without you, I think that gives you the greatest idea of your worth, because you can see how things would probably, and I'm not trying to be egotistical here, but how things would probably fall apart without you,
Yes.
or not go according to the plan you want for your children, or your spouse, or your home even. So yeah, and to also make sure you are filling yourself up as well. Even like, as you said, even if it's a 5 minutes here or there, Even if all I get to do is lift one round of weights, I've done it. I feel better for having done it. Even if you just get to read a chapter, or, sit down for 5 minutes and think to yourself,
Mhm.
just find little ways they're there. Just find them and hang on to them, because then you can give that much more of yourself to
Mhm.
your children. That's a tough question. Um,
I know it's really hard.
I think, and being open to the idea that you are not a static creature.
Mhm.
Change is hard. It's scary, but it's unavoidable as a
Yeah.
mom.
Mhm.
So being being okay with change, and being okay with not being able to plan everything.
Mhm.
That's what tripped me up the most. Is I'm a planner. Um, I'm a people pleaser, and so it hits me hard when things don't go the way I wanted them to, and I feel like I've let people down. Like you were saying with your cake episode,
Mhm.
you wanted that perfect cake because it was your little one's birthday, and so when things like that don't happen the way you saw it happening, it can be hard. It's hard for me, especially. That's just who I am.
Right.
So I think that would be another good piece of advice, is to work on being okay with letting go, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mhm.
I mean, because it is so easy as a mom, as a person, to have this grand vision. It's not going to work that way.
Mhm.
So you have to learn to be okay with letting things go sometimes. And they will be different things that you let go in different seasons, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And you will never know what it is. So as hard as it seems, and you won't get it perfectly, I'm still learning. But I think it, for your sanity and your comfort level, it will help a lot
Mhm.
if you can know that you're going to be changing constantly.
Mhm.
I'm
Yes.
okay with that.
And I think that's where the grace comes in.
Mhm.
Honestly, and I've talked about that in the podcast. There's too much grace sometimes. Like, I just think that we throw out too much grace, and it does become a problem, because then you have the moms that have the TV on all day long, sitting on the couch doing nothing, which I still don't know how people do that. But,
I don't either.
um, but if you're understanding that it's a season, and you're putting in the effort, and you let go of the expectations of the outcome,
Right.
that's the biggest thing. Is we're so focused on what the outcome of our efforts are. And what if the effort is enough? Like, what if trying and loving and caring and being present, what if that's enough? Like, that to me is where the grace comes in. It doesn't have to be, I don't want, like I said, I think grace gets thrown around too loosely sometimes, and then it creates sort of this, I don't know, toxic behavior, and then really like this lack of fulfillment. And it's like, well, are you trying to do something, or are you just okay with your life being the way it is? So I think letting go of those expectations of the outcome, like with the cake, if you just enjoyed that moment and the process and getting there a little bit more than the expectations of a specific outcome, I really think that helps, because then you're talking about comparisons at that point. Why do you want the outcome to be a certain way? Is it because you saw the perfect cake on Pinterest and that's what you want it to be? But yet I don't bake cakes, so that's stupid. Like, it's like, well, that was dumb, which, for the record, I didn't use Pinterest on that one. It came out of my brain, and I was very proud of it at the end, but it was a complete shit show getting to that point. But yeah, no, Nicole, I love that. I absolutely love that advice. It is a really, really hard question to answer. And I'm the same. Like, I always just want to give a mom a hug and just say, like, you are doing awesome. Like, you are amazing. And the decision that you've made to be home and to love your family is seriously one of the best decisions that people can make. So, Nicole, thank you so much. What was that?
Enjoy where you are at.
Yes.
I do, like you're saying, I'll just, one more thing there.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, please.
I think, like you said, like when we focus on the outcome, we miss all the in between.
Mhm.
Like there are some days I'll say to Ray, I don't remember so and so at 2. I don't
Yeah.
remember. I don't, because I was so focused on another sibling or some other thing that was happening that I missed, or my brain didn't process it enough, so it's gone.
Yes.
So good, thank goodness for photography.
Right.
But but I think that I love what you're saying. It's you have to be present and enjoy what you have in that season, because the season will change. You're not stuck in that forever.
Mhm.
And then you'll be ready for the next one. But enjoy the current season, because you will miss out.
Yes.
Otherwise, you can't go back.
Yep.
I mean, and every season is different for every child. Just because Beth is 14, Ethan will not look the same at 14. Emma will not look the same as 14. They each will be a unique 14-year-old as they come through.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think that's critical. What you're
Mhm.
saying, you need to enjoy where you are at, because it doesn't last long,
Right.
and you don't want to not have gleaned from it what you could have.
Mhm.
So,
Oh my gosh. And it is so hard to do that sometimes when you're talking about ages of kids, especially like Lily's 2. Oh my goodness. And I've said this before on the podcast. Lily has thrown me for she has really thrown me for a loop with 2.5. But if I was constantly saying, I can't wait till 3 or I can't wait till 4, I would miss out on
yeah,
mommy doing, I would miss out on these like such beautiful aspects of her being too. That's why I don't say it's a terrible twos, because there's really nothing terrible about it. It's the tough twos. Yes, it is very tough and it's challenging. But if I were so focused on the outcome of, what's going to be next or what's coming, like let's get to 3 or hurry up and get to 4. Oh my goodness, I would miss those tiny little chubby arms wrapping around my neck when I do put her down for her nap time. So it is really tough to be present in that moment sometimes, again, going back to that, in a society that is always pushing you to accomplish the next thing and do the next thing and be more and do more. And that's one of the things that I struggle to articulate, on the podcast, is I never want people to feel like what they're doing isn't enough if it works for them in their household. If you feel good, if you are happy, and if things are going well in your household, then that is fantastic. And if it's like you living a quiet, simple life, but everything is working for you, then that is fantastic. What we talk about on the podcast is when you're struggling, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when things aren't flowing and functioning well. Okay, let's dive into that and see excuse me, what we can do. How can we improve that? But that doesn't mean that you have to climb Mount Everest. That doesn't mean that you have to do these monumental things, because what you're doing in your household is already monumental enough. So it is tough, because you want to feel like you're okay in what you're doing when everybody's telling you you need to do more, be more, try new things. And it's like, but what if I'm okay? What if I'm fine? So
well, that's
yeah.
important. Learn to say no. That's another one.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
That's a kicker. That's a hard one too.
It is. Yes.
Yeah,
So,
you are good. Don't let the world tell you otherwise.
yes, exactly. Yep. Yep. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing this. I have so many other questions I could ask you. So I'm going to have you back on at some point, because there was a couple other topics that I would love to dive in and chat with you about that I think people would find really valuable. But in the meantime, thank you for this beautiful conversation, and I will see you in a few days.
We'll be there. It's on
Yay.
the calendar.
Yay. I'm excited. So, okay. Well, thank you, Nicole. We'll talk to you soon.
All righty.
Hey, sweet mama. Thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Nicole. I absolutely enjoyed my time with her. I can just talk to her for hours. If you're interested in what their businesses are, if you're a local community member, they run a bakery. It's called The Sticky Kitchen. You can find that on Facebook, and I will put that in the show notes below. They take their efforts to the farmers markets in the summer, and trust me, it's amazing. Anytime Nicole's come over for play dates, they've brought us bread and fudge. And I tell her, you can come over to my home every single week if you bring your fudge and your bread. But no, honestly, she's just an incredible person and her family is a joy to be around. So she's welcome in my home anytime. And she knows that. But I hope you found value in this conversation. I hope it helped you. I hope it entertained you. And if it did, please don't forget to give it a like, give it a share, leave us a rating and review on iTunes. And as always, thank you so much for listening today, sweet mama. I look forward to talking to you all again very soon.